Hi lovies, and welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Malinda's channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos and also educate you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much. All right, lovelies, let's dive into this video. So, lovelies, I came across this video on my For You page on TikTok, and I thought to share with you guys because it actually reminds me of the battle of affirmative action. So, this is a kind of a post-affirmative action. If you all don't know, maybe for the sake of people that's not aware, affirmative action was struck down, and this is just like a post of affirmative action. So I'm just gonna roll the clip from Asian Americans, and as well as some of other stage I was able to put together. Please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. Alright, lovely.
Meet John Wang, who got rejected from top colleges and now wants to be used as a prop by conservative media to blame black people for it. Wang couldn't get into Princeton, Caltech, MIT, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, or UC Berkeley. He thinks because he got a 1590 on the SATs and good grades, he's entitled to a spot, apparently. But the logic is so flawed because there are more applicants with 1600s on the SATs than Harvard can even accept, and John didn't even get a 1600. So playing by his rules he loses, and playing by the regular rules he loses because getting good grades and good test scores, as we've known for decades, is not enough to get into top colleges. This kid sounds like a very lost cliche. And the kicker of all of this is that UC Berkeley actually is prohibited from using race-conscious admissions. The state of California has banned this practice for public universities. So it didn't even apply. He got rejected for other reasons, like not being interesting enough. And to every minority who hears that they're only where they are because of affirmative action policies, know that that is total BS. You belong there.
Let's yap about how Asian Americans fucked up affirmative action. Guys, I'm running on a broken nail and a Celsius, and I'm so angry. The worst part was that this was just a part of some ploy from a white man. There are three things that are important to talk about in this case. Number one, it's important to understand what affirmative action is. Two, how white supremacy actually pits people of color against each other, and Asian Americans, I'm looking at you and your fucking dumbasses. And the interesting dynamic of Asian Americans with other POC communities, particularly the black community. Joe, what's affirmative action? Affirmative action is a policy that came about during the civil rights era that sets systematic procedures within federal policy to ensure that historically marginalized groups were given opportunities for advancement and inclusion, particularly within college admissions. What I want everyone watching this to understand is that affirmative action, contrary to popular belief, is not a ticket into college, especially if you are a person of color. It's not. In fact, affirmative action was actually created just to ensure that white legacy kids weren't the only people given opportunities to actually succeed in white society. Because of a lot of black activists during the civil rights era, all people, not just black people within the United States now actually had a chance of doing well in America. Now, affirmative action was already deeply unpopular because anytime white people have to share something that should be for the rest of us, they get a little bit, bitchy. It also upset a lot of people from the Asian American community, particularly because of two things. One was because a lot of people grew up under the model minority myth, which was this myth that led a lot of us to believe that we were the exception, that we were, the good minority that just followed through with all of the rules and procedures that white people had already set for us. And the second thing is just the idea of the American dream. A lot of Asian people just happen to be immigrants, not all of us, of course, but it also essentially allowed us to believe that, if we worked hard, we would get it. Obviously, that's not true. I work really hard, and all I have is anxiety and depression. The federal ruling for affirmative action starts to collapse when this 18-year-old named John Wang, who has a 1590 SAT score and a very good GPA, gets really butthurt about the fact that he didn't get to a bunch of elitist schools. And he starts talking about this a lot on media, and he basically claims that the reason that he didn't get into these schools is because he's Asian American. Now, I don't think that this is entirely untrue because I do believe that people of color in general have a harder time getting into more traditional elitist schools. However, the issue that I have with this little twat is that he claimed that African Americans actually have an easier time getting into these schools because of of affirmative action. He ends up going to this organization called the Students for Fair Admissions that basically is just this whole thing that's against affirmative action entirely and has been since it was ever created. What happens is that they give him this calculator and basically tell him that with his stats, if he was a black person, he would have a 95% chance of getting admitted into Harvard. Truly? Where are they finding this calculator and where can I destroy it? Because that doesn't even make any sense. Case eventually gets picked up by someone named Edward Blum, who is the head of Students for Fair Admissions. Not only is he the head of this dumbass organization, he's also a white Republican litigator who literally has decades worth of experience trying to dismantle everything that happened within the civil rights era because he just hates people of color that much. Particularly, this man has been looking, searching, desperately praying for a reason to dismantle affirmative action. And the funniest thing is that he doesn't even have actual experience as a litigator. He is professionally known as an amateur litigator who just doesn't like people of color and seeing us winning, apparently. Him and his groupies at his little org basically take all of these testimonies from Asian American people like John Wang and create a case against Harvard that he takes all the way to the Supreme Court to essentially argue that affirmative action is actually discriminatory against Asian Americans and the rest of the population. And it's so embarrassing at the fact that Asian Americans were getting used by this white man and we fell for it. We fell for it so hard because of the internal racism that we have within ourselves. But when I say ourselves, Asian American community, you know which particular one I'm talking about. You know which subset I'm angry at. In June of 2023, the Supreme Court decides to side with Edward Blum and says that affirmative action is actually unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Act of the 14th Amendment. So basically, this little white man, he gets his way simply just because Asian Americans don't know how to use critical thinking when it comes to this and realizing that this actually isn't going to help us out in the long run. Edward Blum dismantles decades of hard work done by black activists to make sure that not only their community, but the rest of us are set to go when it comes to college admissions. Make it a little bit more fair because it's never going to actually be equal, but at least make it a little bit better. And we fell for it. We fell for it because Asian Americans sometimes were idiots. There was this survey done with Asian Americans in college, and it turns out that an overwhelming majority of us actually support affirmative action and understand why it's important. It's just a small portion of our community that just decides to scream the loudest because they still have it in their head that we are the model minority, that we have to follow through with the American dream. I also feel like it erases a lot of the actual very intense history Asian Americans have with activism within the United States, particularly in conjunction and in gratitude with the black community. Think about Yellow Peril supports black power during the civil rights era, and the black community support of Asian Americans during protests against the Vietnam War. And as a gay Filipino first-gen American, I remember hearing about this court case and essentially crying when I found out that affirmative action was going to get repealed. Not having affirmative action basically protects people who would rather not see people like me enter into spaces where we can actually enact change for the better. It protects people like Edward Blum who want to make sure that our country stays a white supremacist country. And for Asian Americans, those that are watching this that have come to believe that, black people are taking all of the opportunity away from us, they're not. There is someone who's doing that. Things aren't going to change because you worked hard. Things are going to change because you realize that the system that you're working under is inherently not made for you. And there are people that want to change that. You just have to open up your mindset. Edward Blum. Edward Blum. If I am going to hell, I am going to make sure to drag you down with me.
I'm Asian American and this will be controversial, but I hope you'll hear me out to the end. I attended Harvard twice for undergrad and for business school, and I fully support affirmative action and need to address this false narrative that Asians don't want affirmative action. I resent my race being hijacked to make a case for ending diversity. The Asian American admissions experience has been a primary focus of the current Supreme Court lawsuit, which I really resent because it's been orchestrated by Edward Blum, a white man who has a track record of wanting to end diversity and inclusion in other areas of American life as well. He initially took a white plaintiff before to the Supreme Court against the University of Texas and failed. And so he decided he needed Asian plaintiffs, and so he advertised for them. And now Asian Americans are being used as a wedge against other communities of color. The Harvard Asian American Association and the Asian Alumni Association are both pro-affirmative action. Harvard cannot create a campus that is diverse enough to fulfill its educational mission without considering race as just one factor among many factors. I mean, we've seen massive declines in minority admissions at universities when affirmative action is eliminated. And higher education and these institutions are pipelines to leadership in our society, a society that's still, unfortunately, far from equal and just, one that still has a lot of work to do to close racial disparities and combat systemic racism, one that all of that became painfully clear for this nation with the Black Lives Matter movement. There are racial disparities in education going back centuries in this country, and today, if you're Black, you're more likely to be in an under-resourced school, but also more likely to be viewed as having less academic potential. I mean, yes, in an ideal world, race wouldn't be considered in admissions because in that ideal world, everyone would have access to the same kinds of resources and there'd be no systemic racism. But that is unfortunately not the world yet that we live in today. So what can we do now? I mean, it unfortunately does seem inevitable that affirmative action will be struck down this year. So what's the point of all of this? For one, I think it's important for Asian Americans to speak out versus just simply being used as a pawn in a political battle. I'm also surprised that more people generally aren't speaking out, again, given higher education's then trickle-on impact on future employment opportunities, income potential, leadership roles. This also shows how much voting matters. Please vote in the midterms next week. Early voting has started. Lawmakers have the power to reverse things like the impact of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action or Roe v. Wade.
Meet John Wang, who got rejected from top colleges and now wants to be used as a prop by conservative media.
Okay, so I've been seeing this everywhere and I gotta say something. So I graduated from high school back in 2016 with honors. My GPA was like either a 3.0 or a 3.1. So back then I took the ACT test because back then colleges and universities looked at ACT test scores and GPA. So for me, I wanted to go to university and not community college because that's where I felt like I belong. I would fit in perfectly there. And the university that I went to, that's where my sister went to. Like I had gotten a tour, everything. I was like, this is where I want to be. However, I did not have the ACT score. I had GPA, but not ACT score. I took the ACT test like 3 times. 2 times the first 2 were free, and the third one I had to pay for. And I ended up making the same score every single time, which was a 15. And I kept getting told, go to community college, go to community college, go to community college. But I was like, no, I want to go to university. So the university that I graduated from, they offered me an alternative to get in because they saw how much I wanted to go in there. And plus I told them how my sister graduated from there. Plus they knew about my extracurricular activities that I have done in high school. So the alternative was that I had to take this type of test, which was math and English, and I had to pass one of them. I had to take it twice, but I did end up eventually passing, got accepted in, graduated from the university in 2020. And what I think this dude, John Wayne, needed to understand, because I learned this from my professors and I take this through life in general. Employers don't care about your GPA or where you went to college at. They do not care, not one bit. They just care about your work experience and your skill. You can have that you went to Yale, MIT, or Berkeley. They do not care at all. Because this whole situation with John Wayne, I'm like, dude, everybody's going to laugh their butts off at this case.
When Asian Americans are attacking affirmative action and DEI and standing for socioeconomic entitlement to the exclusion of others, especially Black Americans, who paved the way for the civil rights that we have here in the United States, and including lower income, recent arrival, and especially Southeast Asian Americans, I will fight against that all day, every day, because regardless of race, it's what's right. But fortunately for me, multiple polls from multiple sources over multiple years have consistently shown that a majority of Asian Americans across most Asian demographics support affirmative action. So it's looking like the Asian Americans who are attacking affirmative action and DEI are in fact the traitors. And this becomes especially apparent when you look at the organizations that are bringing these Asian American cases against affirmative action. Like Edward Bloom of Students for Fair Admission, who had been attacking affirmative action in higher education for decades to no avail with white plaintiffs, he brought the cases against Harvard and UNC using Asian American plaintiffs. And the Pacific Legal Foundation, which was founded by members of Ronald Reagan's welfare reform team, who brought the lawsuit against Thomas Jefferson High School. And the Manhattan Institute, which filed amicus briefs against affirmative action in the Harvard, UNC, and Thomas Jefferson cases. Now, without infantilizing the Asian Americans who have signed on to be represented by those organizations, they have autonomy, they know what they are doing. But those are not Asian American-led organizations. Those are white-led conservative and libertarian organizations. And if the plaintiffs knew their history, they would be aware that those organizations represent people who only care about Asian Americans insofar as they can use this as a wedge to cause harm to Black Americans. Now, contrast that with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, one of several Asian American-led organizations who filed amicus briefs in favor of affirmative action in the Harvard, UNC, and Thomas Jefferson cases. So it's looking like it is the Asian Americans who are attacking affirmative action in DEI, knowing that their actions are causing harm to Black Americans and lower income, recent arrival, and especially Southeast Asian Americans, who are in fact the race.
Like, seriously, lovelies, this is just so, hilarious. Like, seriously. I can remember back then last year, oh my goodness, it was just the order of the day, like affirmative action, this affirmative action that. It's all started with this Asian guy that decided that he got so many scores, his score went high, but he was not admitted in these Ivy schools, like all these influential schools and all of that. So he decided that with all of the scores that he had, he was supposed to get himself admitted to such schools, but he was rejected. Instead of this young man to currently maybe apply to other schools that might probably admit him, he swore that he was gonna automatically get this admission to his favorite Ivy schools. So what he did was to go ahead, sue the school with the help of other Asian Americans and pan-colored people. They teamed up thinking that Black people were the reason why they were not getting admitted into the Ivy schools. They were like, Black people are actually taking our spots because Black people, they are naive, they are uneducated, they are not intelligent. So how come they get admitted into the schools? Or they probably get admitted into the schools because of affirmative action. So let's just team up and try to see if we can put them out, like put affirmative action out, so that Black people specifically will not be able to get admitted into the schools, since affirmative action favors Black people. But without these people realizing that affirmative action favors for white women the most, they don't know that. With all their team up, with everything that they did, with all of the debate, then everybody was reacting, Black people was commenting, Asian, but it was as if it was Asian people that were and pan-colored people, they had the opportunity to use Asian people to remove affirmative action, and they used them and they struck down affirmative action, thinking that they are going to affect Black people. That was when it now dawned on them that, oh my God, affirmative action did not that was when now affirmative action and the removal and all of that was now drained on them, and they realized that, wow, this did not really, is not favoring Black people as we thought. It's actually favoring pan-colored women especially. But before then, the decision has been made, it has been struck down, and it's done. I don't even know the update of this one of a guy that started all of this affirmative thing, but I think I need to look for an update to check out if he really later got into his dream schools and all of that. Then post affirmative action begins when Asian people are no more getting admitted the way at which they were getting admitted when affirmative action was in place, and they are like, I thought that this thing will at least enable us to get admitted into IB schools, but it is not. That was when they now found out that, oh my God, they were used by pine-colored people to strike down affirmative action. You know, even if it's favoring black people, but it still it favors the other people the most. And now there's nothing they can do because affirmative action has been struck down, and they'll just keep on looking for admissions, even if the percentage at which people are getting into these IB schools, especially Asian people, have drastically reduced compared to that when affirmative action was in place. So who is now playing who? Sometimes a lot of peers, color people thinks that black people are the problem, black people this, especially black Americans, but they don't know that these black Americans are the reason why at least slavery was abolished. They are still the reason why they made way for people to get into USA, in and out. Like, they are the reason why a lot of things has changed, even if they're still struggling to today. I find it very ironical when so many people try to like come forward without them realizing that these people are the reason why black people still say, oh, I am black and all of that. But they don't realize that they try to be brainwashed. They try to listen to what black color people have to say, brainwash and think that these people are the problem, but they don't know that black people are actually not the problem. They are the ones helping out. They're trying to let you know that this is the truth. They're trying to let you know the truth, but you are so adamant because you don't want to know the truth. You don't want to know what the truth is all about. Now, after all the deeds have been done and everybody is realizing that, oh, this is just I don't know. Everyone is like, oh my God, black people actually told us. Why didn't we listen to black people? Like, seriously, they were actually telling the truth. But when they tell you the truth from the onset, you don't want to believe them. You think that they are the ones that is the problem because they are loud, aggressive, and always complaining. Oh my God, there's nothing you would do for a black person that he or she would never complain. Anyway, lovelies, why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. So please subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the
If you
next
have
one.
watched up to this extent, thank you so much for all the love and support. Why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for educational purposes. So please subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that. Like, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.